everyone, welcome to episode 76 of the Sprue. This video is an update. I've been prepping and painting the Hobby Boss Jackal, and in this video I'll be showing you what I've been up to. Guys, now if you've been following this build, you'll remember that in previous videos I've added all sorts of scratch build detail to the front of the Jackal, and in this video I'm completing the process. I'm calling this an update video simply because I'm covering such a wide range of topics. First, I'll be adding some photo etch parts from Tetra Model Works to upgrade the rear jerry can racks. I'll also be adding some aftermarket AntiKit Plate to the driver's compartment. Then we'll be adding primer, pre-shading and paint to both the front of the Jackal as well as the hull in order to make sure that the colors will match later on. I'll then be adding some wiring to the GPS and electronics components in the driver's compartment, and finally I'll be detailing the driver's dashboard. So guys, that's what I'll be covering in this video, and let's get started. As I mentioned, I'm using the Tetra Model Works detail up set for the Hobby Boss Jackal, and this gives some instructions regarding the rear jerry can racks. They need to be sanded down, the existing parts, to exactly 1 millimeter, and this is something you can easily determine with a set of digital calipers. These are the kit parts, and these are the upgraded photo etch parts, and as you can see, it makes a huge difference, the amount of added detail with this really fine detail upset. There you can see it's actually workable. Lots of little hinges and handles added. And this will do a lot to enhance the accuracy of this kit. Highly recommended. Next up, in reference pictures, you'll see the AntiKit Plate visible in reference pictures of the driver's compartment. For this, I'll be using AntiKit Plate from Voyager model. Guys, this is such useful stuff. I've used it on the Abrams, a few other builds as well. The first step is just to create a template from which I can cut the required size and shape of AntiKit Plate. I'm using some masking tape for this, working it into all those corners, and the masking tape will eventually become my template for cutting the brass aftermarket. And here you can see used a few strips of masking tape, and this is now perfect to transfer to the skid plate itself, using the adhesive edge on the skid plate, and then taking a pencil and just marking the outline of the area that I'll be using. Some bending is required as well, and then finally this is glued into place into the driver's compartment. And guys, this AntiKit Plate adds such a nice amount of detail to the front of the Jackal. There you can see with the modified front end we've already worked on at that glove box, and this will certainly add a lot of added detail to this kit. Next up, in reference pictures, you'll notice these Blastproof plates that are placed on the floor of the driver's compartment there, and to make this I use some styrene sheet from Evergreen. Most of us are familiar with this. And really, this is just a simple matter of doing the correct measurements and then cutting that from the styrene sheet. I certainly do love my scratch building, as you've probably learned by now. And all these little details that we add goes a long way to improving the accuracy and just the look of a model. As I mentioned earlier, I also painted the hull just to make sure that the colors will match, the finishing will match, and adding these small details like the smoke discharges was also necessary. I also pre-drilled some anchoring holes, as I'll be adding wiring to this later. With all this prep work done, I can now move on to paint. And of course, the first step always is to use a good quality primer, and I'll be using Mr. Hobby's black primer. This is applied to the model in an even coat, smooth coat, and really with Mr. Hobby you can't go wrong. Always get a very nice result using this specific primer. I'm also using olive drab primer from Vallejo for some of the radio components that I'll be painting later. So guys, this is it. This is the result of the primed parts, and the next step now is to lay down pre-shading. For this I'll be using pure white and pure black from Vallejo Model Air. This is something you've seen me done quite a few times, and there's different ways of doing this. My way of doing it is what I'm showing you there on the screen, just applying some contrasting white and black, and of course the base coat will go on top of this and giving us all that nice contrasty colors that will be visible through the base coat. This is something that you certainly take your time with, and well worth doing before you apply your base coat. So there we go, black and white pre-shading applied. Now at this stage I was feeling a bit adventurous, and I thought, let me add some color to this as well, just to enhance the British desert yellow that I'll be adding later. So first up, I applied some medium yellow, just a few splotches of that. And you can see there, very light, very subtle, just applied to the white areas for some little bit of color, just to enhance the final base color. There we go, that's the yellow applied. And next I decided on a slightly richer color, this being orange from Model Air from Vallejo. This is sparingly added just to some of the highlighted areas, and just again to bring out that nice bright yellow color. With all this done, the pre-shading is done, and we're almost ready to start applying the base color. Now some sanding is required, guys, and one of my Brazilian hobby friends once gave me a very good tip, and it's to use coffee filter paper as a light sand. Of course the coffee filter paper will not remove the paint from the surface, but it's still coarse enough just to give the surface a very light sanding. And of course the other benefit is also that this being paper, it's easy to get into little spaces and crevices. So I gave the entire model a good sanding, and with this done I was finally ready to apply the base color. Guys, I'm a big fan of AK Real Colors lacquer paints. In this case I'm using British Sand Yellow. The benefit of course being that this is the correct shade. No mixing is required, and this can go straight into my airbrush, and I can start applying this over the pre-shaded surface of the Jackal. Again, applying this in many very light transparent coats so as to not kill the pre-shading. In order to paint the hull, I first had to mask these vinyl mud flaps from Tetra Model Works, and this is easily done with some Vallejo masking tape. Just carefully applied to the vinyl parts themselves, what I'm showing you on the screen there. Once this is done, I could of course then move on to airbrushing. Again guys, this is lacquer paint. I love these paints from AK. They go on really thin, really smooth, and really one of the benefits of using lacquer paint for this type of application. Gradually building up the color, being careful not to kill that pre-shading in one thick coat. With this done, final sanding with some coffee filter paper is again in order, just to get rid of all the coarseness, and just to make sure that the surface is clean. I used my airbrush and just gently blew away all that dust from the sanding, making sure that the model is completely clean. Now at this stage I was again feeling adventurous, and I decided, let me add some US Earth Yellow, a slightly darker shade, just to the outlines. And guys, this is a very subtle effect. You can't actually see it well on the video, but trust me, it does make a huge difference when applied just to the edges, the corners of the model, and it just brings out that nice rich color. Next I painted the blast mats. These are those styrene strips, and this was done with native black as well as US loam. Once the paint is dried, it's time to move on to probably the best part of scale modeling, peeling away masking tape. Guys, this is just so much fun, especially when you start seeing the results of your work, especially on aircraft builds. Peeling away that masking tape on the canopy, that's something special. So this is it. This is where we are now. Let's move on. Next is some detail painting. Guys, I was fortunate to acquire some of these new Vallejo brushes, this being a detail brush, 10-0 brush, and these are highly recommended. I bought a couple of different types, and I'm so impressed with these brushes. They certainly will become a big part of my hobby toolbox. This requires a steady hand, just painting in all the detail on those radio and electronics components. And the kit includes a very nicely detailed vehicle applique GPS receiver, this being a GPS unit of the British Army. And I decided to take my time painting this, first painting in the screen itself using my Vallejo detail brush, as well as the various buttons, and using my reference images sourced from the internet to make sure that I get the detail correct on this. This reference picture shows the GPS as well as a data terminal mounted by the side of the commander's seat. And I decided to wire this up next using wire from AK as well as Tamiya. Now guys, as I mentioned before, when you add wire, drill small anchoring holes first. This will just make it so much easier to mount wire in the correct positions on the vehicle electronics. Using small little lengths of this, and then with gel type super glue, this is added to the various components using my reference pictures as a guide as to where to apply the correct wires. Next, I decided to add these yellow boots on the cables themselves, and for this I used flat yellow from Vallejo model color, again applied with my 10-0 Vallejo detailing brush. This requires a steady hand and certainly not something that you rush. Next up are these very heavy-duty connectors that I see in reference pictures. There you can see the cable itself with those super heavy-duty connectors. These will have to be scratch built. They're not in the kit themselves, and I decided to use some 0.75mm styrene rod. This is glued in place with gel type super glue in the correct position, again using my reference pictures to make sure that I place these correctly. These are then cut shorter to the required length. There we go. And the edges are then just carefully sanded flat to make sure that it resembles the connector itself. This is then painted with steel color from Model Air. Now guys, although this paint is intended for airbrushing, I've often used this for brush painting as well because it's so nice and thin, and especially in situations like these, it benefits having that really thin paint. The wiring is added next, very carefully, gel type super glue being the adhesive of choice here, and there you go, a nicely detailed console by the side of the commander's seat. The wiring certainly makes a huge difference. Again, on the driver's side, adding those yellow labeling boots that they place on the cables, similar as what I'm seeing in my reference pictures. And when everything is done and painted, these can finally be carefully mounted to the driver's compartment of the Jackal. And really guys, this the sort of scratch built wiring, the detail makes a world of difference. Also painted the what I suppose is the gear lever, center of the driver's compartment, and finally this is the result. Just a little bit of wiring makes a huge difference on these modern AAV models. Now next is the driver's dashboard, very nicely detailed in the kit. And if you look at the reference pictures, you can see there's all these colored buttons and switches, silver switches, as well as the gauges. For this, I'll be using my wet palette from Red Grass Games, also available from Supernova Studio. Placing the different colored paints, and then again using my detail brush from Vallejo 10-0. I now carefully start adding the color to those buttons using my reference image of the real thing as a guide. And guys, a wet palette really is recommended for this because you'll be working with your paint for quite a while, extended times, and having that wet palette just keeps the paint wet and makes sure that you can work without issues. So there we go, the basic painting, the basic colors have been applied, and next I'm going to prepare for decals and wash. The varnish I'm using is Micro Satin from Microscale, one of my favorite products. this is applied just to protect the paint, all the work that we've done up to this point, making sure that we don't damage that. So the decal sheet, this is supplied by Hobby Boss, and not bad. The gauges themselves look quite good, and this is applied with the normal decal solutions from Microscale as well. The gauges themselves are quite small and need to be cut individually from that decal sheet. This is now applied to the dashboard itself using Microset and Microsol. Many modelers will be familiar with those two products. The next step is to add a pin wash, and guys, by now you know I love these filters from MIG Productions. They are filters, but I found that they actually work very well as color washes as well, as an enamel color wash. And this is now carefully applied to those kit parts themselves. And once this is dried, the excess is removed. This will give us a very nice wash effect on all the raised detail in this kit. And you can see that on your screen. This makes a huge difference, a proper color wash. So there's the result. You can see that on those rivets, beautiful effect. I really love this. And the same is also visible on the dashboard. Now we still need some glass on these gauges. And for this, my preference is UV resin. Now guys, this stuff's pure magic. You've seen me use it for quite a few different applications before, and it's very easy to apply some of the liquid to that gauge itself, and then UV resin, of course, is cured with UV light. You can either place this outside, use a UV flashlight, or in this case I'm using this UV sanitizing unit that's meant for cell phones. And that will instantly cure the UV resin. And there you can see it gives a very nice sort of glass type finish on all those glass gauges, as well as the display screen. So there we go guys, those are the original reference images that I used. Were very useful indeed, and I think the reproduction, the recreation of this in the model is quite accurate. I'm very happy with this. This build is far from done, and I've got some very exciting news coming up in my next video. I'll be doing some diorama planning and all sorts of interesting things happening there, so do join me for that video. This is it then for video 76. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, join me on Instagram for frequent updates. Thank you for watching.